We're recording now, anyways.
I know. Here we go. 3, 2, 1. We're live.
All right. If you've ever burned a turkey for Thanksgiving, go ahead and hit that like and subscribe button.
Does that mean even the what do you call that? The
grease,
deep fried one.
Deep frying. Yeah. If however burned it.
So I got a story.
I'm sure you do. Go ahead. Let's hit your button there. Story time with Chris.
There was a member of the church back home, and he was just an awesome guy. And he was...
But we won't mention his name, though.
Oh, yeah. Man. Well, he's dead.
Okay.
But he was... The two things I remember about Will Carter, okay?
Yeah.
Is that... You remember the super couponing days? Remember them days?
My wife still coupons. So
No. There used to be these group of people called the super couponers.
Okay. And
so, like Kroger, they don't have a Kroger down here, but you know, you've seen a Kroger before, right?
Yeah. We drive sometimes to Laurel just to go to Kroger.
All right. So the Kroger, they used to do like double and triple coupons. Well, Will would be one of those guys that would go and he would get like 45 tubes of toothpaste.
Yeah.
And he would end up some kind of way doing his coupons where they would pay him.
Right. You know, my wife and Christy Toombs had did the same thing.
Yeah, where they buy all this stuff.
Go get 10 and then all this kind of stuff and then
all this, rigmarole.
33 cents for a bag of groceries.
Will was so good at it that he would get it to where they would pay him at the end. And I don't know how
just with extra care bucks or something.
Yeah, whatever. Right? So Will was a super couponer. The second one was he called me over there one day and was like, he's like, my septic line they buried from the house to the tank was so shallow that it's just kind of washed over, and I nicked it with my mower. And so I knocked the top off of the line.
Your septic line?
Yeah, and it was a septic field.
That stinks.
Yeah. Well,
wrong button, bud.
No, that's the one.
Oh.
That was
I thought you were done.
No, because that was too poor.
Oh, yeah. All right.
But so he calls me. He's like, "Can you come over and fix my line?" I'm like, "Well, I mean, maybe. Just depends on what's involved in this thing." Well, I went over and I could fix his line. Well, it didn't take no time. It just was one of them ones that's just a real easy fix. He says, "Now, I'm going to deep fry this turkey, and I want you to get me to help me out since we got it done so quick. Maybe you can help me, whatever it was." So he was real particular, like real,
You should be with your Thanksgiving turkey.
Well, Will was one of those guys that like he had his 96 tubes of toothpaste on a shelf, like all organized. And then beside it was the 48 bottles of shampoo. And this dude's like 80 at this point. And you're thinking, and he's almost bald. So you're like, dude, you basically what you've done is created a yard sale for your kids out of toothpaste and shampoo and bath soap over here. Mm-hmm. So he
got him a whole closet of it.
So we're gonna deep fry this turkey. Now, Will was getting on in his age, like I said, and he had a stroke. So his right or left side didn't work real good. He kind of drug it a little bit, And so he wanted me to help him. I was like, sure. So we're going to spread out this tarp on it. He had a real big old fancy kind of deck, out back about twice.
Yeah, don't want to get grease all over it.
Yeah, it's about twice of the size of one you had on your house over there that you lived in. It was just a real big one, right? Yeah. Overlooked in the woods. And it was up real high. Everything's in the mountains. So we put this big old tarp down, right? And Will comes out with the turkey. Now, I had never done this before. You got to figure, I'd heard of it, but I'm 22 years old.
This story's getting better.
The only turkeys I've ever heard of.
You enjoying this story, Ben?
I am.
The only turkeys I'd ever seen were ones that come out the oven, right? But this new fad.
Or out the woods. Boom!
We're frying turkey. So Will's like, all right, we're going to, the little clothes hanger thing you put it in on.
Right.
So he comes over there. Like I said, you got to keep in mind the disabled brother here and this blue tarp everywhere. Well, what happens when water...
Was it still frozen?
Yes.
Oh, my goodness. So...
Bob, let me just tell you, okay, it was... You've seen the videos of them, like, exploding in the fire department.
How quick did you have to call 911?
Bob, I thought I was going to have to jump on Will because when he dropped that turkey in, it starts boiling, and I'm like, whoa, that's weird, because I don't know what it's going to do. And all of a sudden, it just erupts over. What's happened is he's left the ice ball down in the bottom.
Right.
And so
this grease is interacting with it.
Yeah, so now it's coming, and it's boiling over, and whoosh. I mean, it's like an atom bomb, and Wheeless, he's handicapped, and he's trying to get out the way, and it's fire raging across the deck. And when it's all said and done,
no more deck.
The craziest thing was that he got lucky enough to where his boards on his deck had a wide enough space that most of that grease could fall down through it.
Oh, yeah.
But he permanently melted that blue tarp to his porch. So he had blue stripe. He had a, whatever size that tarp was, blue striped boards on there because he couldn't get out of the way in time for that poor turkey.
That's good stuff. It's so right now if you've ever burned a turkey or if you've ever caught something on fire deep frying a turkey, then hit that. Give us a like. Also, if you're traveling right now and you're listening to our podcast, we'd appreciate a thumbs up. And hopefully you're having a good Thanksgiving. And so we're talking about thankfulness, and we were going to have a little turkey roast today, but Ben and Chris were too scared. They didn't have any ammo on me.
That's what it was.
So zero ammo means you can't shoot. So I figured,
because me and Chris have zero ammo.
Right. So I figured I wouldn't bring any ammo against y'all, but let's just say it would be a fun turkey shoot.
See, what it was Ben and I talked about this before.
So now y'all are going to try to tag team.
No. We talked about this before, and we knew that what we had was cataclysmic.
It would hurt my feelings too bad.
It would hurt your feelings.
It would be kind of, so a friend of mine's moving right now, and Tyler Anderson's helping him this afternoon.
And it's raining out there now.
Well, and so Tim's got, there's a boy, he's in our hunting club, and he works for Tim. And so he's a dwarf, but Cody, he's hilarious. Great kid. He's in college right now. Ben, you need to chase after him. And so he's in college.
Is that a joke?
No, he's in college at USM. And but anyway, so him and Tyler Anderson are they were moving a bed together.
Tyler's daddy's 6'5".
Exactly. So Tyler's like 6'4".
Right.
And so Tyler's on the top side of the ramp and Cody's on the bottom side of the ramp. And Tyler's so tall he can't even fit in the trailer. His head's hitting the trailer. And Cody's on the bottom side. And Eric took a picture of it and sent it off to us.
Wow.
And so what you're saying is like your ammo is as tall as Tyler is, and my ammo is as short as Cody.
No, really, I just didn't, Bob. I just don't want to hurt each other's feelings.
Yeah,
I want to make this a good place.
Right. We wouldn't hurt anybody's feelings, would we, Ben?
No.
Yeah.
See, poor Ben. What our listeners don't know is that poor Ben wouldn't hit the record button while we're over there picking on him a while ago.
Earlier. Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. So I really am. We're all thankful for each other. I'm thankful for you guys and appreciate everything that you do, not only for the kingdom, but also for me personally. So, you want to start us off? You want to start with the scripture, or you want me to?
Well, you came up with the topic, so I'm going to let you run.
All right. So I think about, giving thanks is listed 44 times in the New King James Version of the Bible. And so there's all these times, give thanks to the Lord for he is good, his mercy endures forever. Psalm 118:29. But I wanted to kind of tie this into how we've been talking about compromise over the last few weeks. And so I want us to look at Romans chapter 1 right quick.
Okay.
And sometimes, gratitude really, it affects my attitude. And so hopefully there'll be some good sermons this weekend well,
you're preaching in Bowling Green, right?
Yeah, preaching.
So there'll at least be one up there.
Well, maybe, and it's so Romans chapter 1 and verse 20. As we talking about how that their invisible attributes were clearly seen. That since the creation of the world, God's invisible attributes are clearly seen, being understood by the things that are made, even his eternal power and Godhead, so that they are without excuse. Because although they knew God, they did not glorify him as God, nor were thankful, but became futile in their thoughts, and their foolish hearts were darkened. We talked last week about, with Eric Lyons about hope, and hopefully you can see that podcast, and maybe Ben can put us a link on here. But they're without excuse. But we talked about how that those people who are without people who forget God, they have no hope. And clearly we see that people right here, because although they knew God, they didn't glorify him as God. And when you're not glorifying God as God, when you're worshiping the creature instead of the creator, and that's what this whole this whole verse, this passage is talking about. And that's what happens. And so what happens is when you have people who forget about God, they become unthankful. And we can have an unthankful society. And certainly I think about our society and how we've drifted so far. Certainly people are thankful for many things, but you got to realize that, like, we should be giving God the glory for every single thing that we have, even the the marshmallows that are on the sweet potato casserole.
How is that even not dessert?
I know.
They put it on we had our meal Sunday, and I always think, like, this should be dessert.
You should even be thankful for my aunt one year, Aunt Brenda. I love you. I hope you're listening to this. But she put raisins and pineapple in the sweet potato casserole one year.
How was that?
We have dogged her for years about that.
Like what were you thinking?
Well, she was on Weight Watchers or something.
It ain't like quite cheese in the fudge.
She was. Yeah. Hey, you know what? I did some research on that. My wife said, Bob, there's a lot of recipes that have cheese in fudge.
Well, I'm sure there's a lot of recipes that call for broccoli and crazy stuff, but right. Don't mean you're still going to do it.
Yeah. So but I think maybe she was. Raisins and pineapple, maybe it was just a test for us to see how thankful we were. I was really thankful, though, that there was another sweet potato casserole sitting there right beside it. That's what I was really thankful for. But people, they although they knew God, they didn't glorify him that way. And then it says, nor were they thankful. And so when we're not glorifying God, what ends up happening is we really our gratitude really begins to sink.
Well, Paul uses this kind of verbiage here in Romans 1 that they worshipped and served the creation,
the creature instead of the creator.
Yeah, and that just means the creation. Mm-hmm. The things here on earth.
Yeah, and that's verse 25. They exchanged the truth of God for the lie and worshiped and served the creature rather than the creator, who is blessed forever. And so it says right after that, that's the reason why homosexuality is in this world. Verse 26.
That's right.
Because I'm not going to glorify him as God. So people claim, okay, well, I'm thankful. I had some guys who helped me pour some concrete this past week. And so he was asking me, he's like, what day is Turkey Day? I'm like, it's Thursday, bud. And of course he's from a different country, and he's from Mexico. And I was like, so do you celebrate Turkey Day? He said, if I have money, we do. And I was like, well, there you go. And but we were talking about just being thankful and got to have a Bible study with those guys and just trying to point them to the truth, trying to point them to God. And
well, isn't it so you think about this now. Thankfulness. We can surely be thankful for a lot of things, mm-hmm. but we can sure put stock, as it were, in a lot of things that we really ought not be thankful for. Mm-hmm. You take money, for example. How many times have you heard people pray at our collection time in our service? We'll say something like, now, as a matter of convenience or something like that, we'll take up the collection. Well, maybe even cite one of the verses, and then we'll pray about it, right?
Yeah.
And we'll pray, and we will pray that in America, a country that's just so prosperous, we'll pray for things like help us to use the funds that we collect, help us to have wisdom, and all those things are well-meaning things. But if you take one step back from that, and just think, like, we don't ever hear prayers prayed, Lord. I hear them prayed in Honduras and these other countries. Lord, for those that wanted to work this week and couldn't, mm-hmm. for those, Lord, that don't have any money to be able to contribute, we pray that you would help them to have an avenue of being able to take care of themselves this week. Well, we don't even say those prayers here. because it doesn't even hit our radar, because it's just so we live in such an affluent nation. Well, you think about the things that we're thankful for a lot of times. Is money, by and large, ever a good thing for people to have?
Well, let
me just answer it for you, Bob. It's 2 letters. No.
Yeah, where we see money, we see it as a blessing. God sees it as a test, and Satan sees it as an opportunity.
And so, by and large, most people will never view money as from a steward's standpoint. They will view money as something that they've either done and earned and gained, and by default, they're special in some kind of way. You know, I've made all my thousands, millions, billions, whatever it is, because what I've done. Or the second side of the coin is now I've got this money and I'm going to do everything in my power to hold on to it.
That's right. And I really wanted to lead into that, and glad that you did, is that sometimes we put our gratefulness in the wrong place, and I'm thankful for the wrong things. And it's you take the example in Luke 18 of the Pharisee and the tax collector, and they're both there praying.
Yeah, and Jesus uses it. 2 men went up to the temple to pray.
Yeah, he spoke this parable to some who trusted in themselves.
Where's it at?
Starting in verse 9.
Yeah.
They were righteous and despised others, but they trusted in themselves. And that's what I was trying to get at before when I was telling you that sometimes in a podcast before, that sometimes I think that we put too much emphasis, and I've put too much emphasis in what I do and what I can do as far as Christianity, or my children, as far as, okay, you made good decisions, so then you're good this week. When really, no. What it boils down to is my thankfulness for God should be so much that I am going to make those good decisions. I'm so grateful that the goodness of me, it belongs to Christ and not myself. So thankful for me that, so thankful not for myself but for God. And so 2 men went up to the temple to pray, one a Pharisee and one a tax collector. The Pharisee stood and prayed thus with himself: God, I thank you. But here's what he says: that I'm not like other men. Let's take a break.
We got through 20 minutes pretty quick, man. It only says 17 over there on the thing.
Well, this card got full.
What card?
This one right here.
On that thing, so what do you got to do? Mm-hmm. Go dump it?
Do something. I had 29 minutes on it for the record time, and then it didn't even make it through 18.
You had 29 left? Mm-hmm. Okay, well, it must just be the way that's picking up the film then.
I don't know because it's like every 7 minutes or whatever.
Yeah. Well, whatever.
Okay. If you need to go dump it.
Yeah.
But the good thing is, it clicked right at 18 minutes for our normal time.
So are y'all going up to Bowling Green, or what are y'all doing?
I am. So Courtney and the kids are going to be here, but I'm going out of town. I'm going up to Bowling Green to stay with my father-in-law, and I'm going to do some deer hunting.
Oh.
And I'm going to preach up there, and I'm going to go. And then Sunday night, I'm going up there with Jackie and them. Do you know Robbie Fudge? He's getting named as an elder this coming Sunday.
Okay, that's cool.
So I'm going to lead singing up there Sunday night.
He's at Bowling Green Church?
No. He's at Glasgow. So I'm going to go to Glasgow Sunday night.
Oh, okay, that's cool.
Yeah. So I'm going to stay with my father-in-law, and then going to do some deer hunting, and then I'm going to hit those. So the church in Bowling Green, I met that guy in a Little Mountain Ministry Camp, Brian Proctor, and he preaches out there.
Okay, cool.
I don't even know the name of the church, honestly.
Mm-hmm.
But I just called him and told him I was going to be up there, and I wanted to get lunch with him. And he's like, "Man, you need to preach." And I was like, "Woe to me if I don't preach." Okay, yeah.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And so and then he was like, so he preached at Little Mountain 2 weeks ago. Then he said this past week, he's like, this guy who I guess is from Georgia, and a lady who moved up there and has hunting land, has him come up to hunt, allows him to come up and deer hunt every year. And he, so this guy, he preaches up there, I guess whatever Sunday in November, their opening week. And so he preached this past Sunday. So Brian was out. Then the other guy preached this past Sunday. So he was like, I was like, well, I can come up and do whatever. I said, but man, I said, they're going to want to hear you preach. Like, this will be your third Sunday out of the pulpit. He's like, they don't care about me. I've been here 19 years. And so then he talked to the elders, and then they were like, well, why don't you get him to come Sunday night? Well, in the meantime, I'd already committed with
Robbie and them.
Yeah, that I'd lead singing Sunday night. So Brian calls me up, and he's like, Can you do Sunday night? And I was like, man, I just committed. And I said I was going to come worship with you guys on Sunday morning. And he's like, okay, I still want you to preach. Like, go ahead. And so he texted me this morning and said, hey, we're good. We want you to preach. He talked to his elders last night. I think they're a country church. He says they're small, but they at least got elders. So,
Glasgow's a big one, though. You know what?
How big are they?
I think they got like 300 or 400 people.
Okay.
Yeah, I think they're pretty. I think they're probably getting close to twice the size of us.
Well, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Jackie's an elder up there now. Do you know that?
I knew that.
Y'all ready to go back on the air?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're ready.
Okay. All right, 3, 2, 1, action.
So this guy, he claims to be thankful. God, I thank you. But he's saying, I thank you that I'm not like other people. Extortioners, unjust, adulterers, even this tax collector. I fast twice a week, give tithes of all that I possess. So I give. So you think about somebody who claims to be thankful, and there's somebody who gives, but they're so far away from God right now in that situation. And so he's going,
well, they're credentializing.
Exactly. And so that's what happens. And that's the point that I think you were making, is people credentialize their thankfulness in themselves, or in the things that they possess or what they have.
Yeah, and just think about how many other things we have. I mean, like, I'm probably going to make some people mad by saying this, but like, just think about how people treat their dogs and cats. I mean, they'll just be, I literally, Bob, there was only like 2 or 3 ladies in the whole machine shop. And I literally worked with a lady I remember one night she came to me, she's like, you got anything to eat? I was like, well, yeah, generally speaking, Jessica, I mean,
Look at me, lady.
Do I look like I'm going to go away unprepared?
I look like I'm going to miss Thanksgiving.
And right. Even if I ain't got money, we're going to figure it out some kind of way. And so I went, and she's like, well, I got some nabs. You know what nabs are?
Yeah, just a snack or whatever.
Look, pack of crackers. And she was like, well, I can't give him that. And I was like, what are you doing? She was like, there's a kitty in the parking lot. And I was like, okay. She's like, he looks hungry. And I said, all right.
I look hungry too, ma'am.
Yeah, I was like, I brought those for me. She's like, well, I don't want to feed those to him. I may give him high cholesterol. And I'm like, are you kidding me? Seriously? And she's like, yeah, I mean, and she looked at me and she's like, I spend more money on cat food than I do with my food. And I said, what do you mean? She said, I got my 19 cats or whatever it is I feed. Yeah. And then I go feed the cats behind the Kmart at the trash cans.
You smell like them too, ma'am.
And either way, and you're just, and she had this conversation with me in legitimacy.
Yeah.
Like it shouldn't, these things I'm telling you should not be foreign to you. And we put all these things up on a pedestal.
Yeah. And let's be clear. We're fine with you feeding your animal and taking care of your dog and not abusing them.
Yes, exactly. I'm not saying
but
that.
Yeah, we're such a rich country that people, I mean, haircuts for dogs and everything.
They carry them, you see them in the buggies at Walmart.
Yeah.
I mean, they carry them around at, Sam's. I don't want to be at a restaurant and your dog be in there. And now if you got some kind of little an issue or whatever, I understand, right? Some kind of service animal,
working dog, yeah.
But when you got one of these little frou-frou poof dogs that, like, if times gets tough, you're not going to get but one meal out of, like skinning rabbits, you know, and eating. Like, don't bring that thing to the restaurant. I don't care how much you love, and you're just so thankful.
Chris, you're just unthankful.
Is that what it is?
You know, if you go to one of these third world countries, like dogs and cats, they're like
They look
the
like
lowest. They're the lowest on the totem pole.
Yeah,
you know?
exactly.
They look like they miss meals, like poor little Ben.
Trust me, I don't miss meals. I just I don't know where I'll put it. You know?
Yeah,
You still got that early 20s metabolism.
right.
Mine and Chris slowed down just a little bit.
Yeah. When I got married, I didn't weigh but 113 pounds.
My right
Married
leg.
63
my right leg.
years now.
Yeah.
But it just goes back. So you think about thankfulness, and you know how you can tell how thankful you are for something is by what it motivates you to do. So I can give lip service like this old boy right here.
Yeah.
Lord, I thank you that and just think about what he's doing. He's looking at the Lord, and I don't know if you do this, but do you ever like picture what it looks like in your mind? You know, like what the scene looks
The
like.
throne room of God.
No. This right here, like when you're anything in the
this
Bible,
one?
when
Yeah.
you're reading David and Goliath, what did it look like?
Right.
You know, these things, and so. I see this boy here standing there going, Lord, I'm just so thankful that I'm not like this boy over
I'm
here.
thankful I'm not like this dude on his knees praying to you right here.
This guy over here. Look at this guy. I'm so glad I'm not like him. And not only that, I am so much better because I give these tithes and I don't commit adultery and I am not unjust. I am just so great, Lord. I'm just so thankful for me. Mm-hmm. I'm just so thankful for me.
And people today will claim that they don't have that, but really deep down, if we're not careful, we can all fall into this category.
Hey, I'm going to tell you right now, if it's one thing that social media has exposed, it's the people that are real thankful for themselves.
The eyes. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's me, myself, and I.
Yeah, I mean,
And
some people are real fans of some people.
yeah, and this tax collector, he's standing afar off, would not so much as raise his eyes to heaven, but beat his breast, saying, God, be merciful to me, a sinner. And I tell you, this man went down to his house justified rather than the other. For everyone who exalts himself will be humbled, and he who humbles himself will be exalted. And when you live in the richest nation in the world, I've heard it said that if you have any amount of money in your wallet today, that you're richer than 80% of the world.
If you've got change, there's a website you can go to. If you've got change in your ashtray, you know, whatever you want to call it. Mine's in my little, I don't have an ashtray in your car anymore, but mine's in my little handle, you know, you open your car at. It's probably got $10, $15 in that thing and change. And if you got any change in that thing, you're richer than 90% of the world.
Yeah.
90% of the world. So I want to look at a scenario of thankfulness. And I mean thankfulness from let's just turn to 2 Samuel 24.
Yeah. And going with like what you were saying a minute ago is like your thankfulness turns into what? You can test how thankful you are based on where you give your appreciation and what you do and what you turn that into. And that's the whole point that I was trying to make the other day when we were talking, is that when I'm placing my value in what I do, it's not it. But when I place my value in God and what He's done for me, then it should be turned into thanks in a life of service, a life of obedience, a life that says, God, I want to be holy because that's what you are.
And I'm giving it to Him on His terms.
Yeah.
So you think about, there's this perfect scenario I think about here in 2 Samuel 24. Now, you know, David is called a man after what?
His God's own heart.
All right. Did David mess up?
See, some people get that messed up. That after God's own heart is a man who's in pursuit of God's own heart.
Yeah, and so
not modeled after him.
And the Lord would go on to say that David was faithful in all things, save the matter of Uriah the Hittite.
Yeah.
Well, you know what? David messed up a lot of times. Mm-hmm. But God looked at that thing with David and Bathsheba and Uriah and was like, dude, you made a mess of that thing, and you kept making a mess of it. Well, this is an interesting scenario that happens in 2 Samuel 24. David's kind of getting old. David is kind of, twilight years of his kingdom. kingship, whatever you want to call it, where they kind of run together. You know, you got to die to quit being king. But so David is running at the end of his years. David has this idea, and God told David, never count the people. Don't count the people, David. You don't need to know how many people you got. When Gideon, we took 300 and beat them. When the walls of Jericho fell down, you did nothing. You just marched around it and they fell over. So don't worry about how many people you got. David, you're the greatest king that Israel ever have. David, you've conquered more than, with war than any king will ever will. Now, Solomon will go on to have more territory, but it'll be through diplomatic reasons. But David, you're the best king leader that Israel will ever have from beginning to end. Saul started out strong, fell off the wagon. David, the whole time, towed the line. Solomon started off strong, fell off the wagon. David, you're the one. Don't number the people. Just trust me. Well, guess what David does? You know, don't do this thing, and it's almost inevitably what people want to do. So David numbers the people. God gives David, and even when David... Chapter 24, verse 1, again, the anger of the Lord was aroused against Israel, and he moved against David. And he moved David against them to say, go number Israel and Judah. So the king said to Joab, the commander of the army who was with him, go out to all the tribes of Israel from Dan to Beersheba, top to bottom, and count the people, that I may know the people. Verse 3, now Joab said, now may the Lord your God add to the people 100 more times than there are, and may the eyes of my Lord king see it. But why does my Lord desire this thing? In other words, like, I wish we had 100 more people than what we know about. But why do you want to do this thing? Nevertheless, the king's word prevailed against Joab and against the captains. Therefore, Joab and the captains of the army went out from the presence of the king to count the people of Israel. So they're going to go count the people of Israel. God's anger is going to be aroused against them. God's going to give David 3 choices that he can take. You can do one of these 3 things. And David said, you can be pursued by your enemies. There's several of these 3 things. And he chooses this plague as the one, because God's like, David, you messed up. You didn't do right. You haven't done what you need to do. And so David says, Lord, I'm going to choose this one, the third one. I'm going to let...
Yeah, let's read them right quick.
All right.
So, verse 13.
Yeah, 13.
So, God came to David and told him, and he said, here's your 3 choices. Shall 7 years of famine come upon you and your land, or shall you flee 3 months before your enemies while they pursue you, or shall there be 3 days plague in your land? Now consider and see what answer I should take back to him who sent me.
So, verse 14, David says, I am in great distress. Please let us fall into the hands of the Lord, for his mercies are great, but don't let me fall into the hand of man. So he's hedging his bets on God's greatness.
Yeah.
Instead of man's. He's like, well, I know God's goodness.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pick that one. Verse 16, when the angel stretched out his hand over Jerusalem to destroy it, the Lord relented from the destruction and said to the angel who was destroying the people, it is enough. Now restrain your hand. And the angel of the Lord was by the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. Then David spoke to the Lord when he saw the angel who was striking the people, and he said, surely I have sinned. I'm the one that did wrong, Lord. And I have done wickedly, but these sheep, Israel, what have they done? Let your hand, I pray, be against me and against my father's house. So in other words, take it out on me. I'm the one that did wrong.
Yeah.
Now David chose this, but once he sees it, he realizes what he's really asked for. And so Gad comes to him, and Gad came that day to David and said to him, go up, erect an altar on the Lord, up to the Lord on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. So David, according to the word of the Lord, Gad went up as the Lord commanded him. And when Araunah looked and saw the king and the servants coming toward him, Araunah went and bowed before the king with his face to the ground and says, why has my lord king come to his servants? And David said, to buy this threshing floor, to build an altar to the Lord, that the plague may be withdrawn from the people. Now just think about something here.
Yeah, and that's where the temple's going to be built.
Now I want to step back though.
I'm sorry.
This is a Jebusite.
Yeah.
This is not one of David's people here. This is one of the people that they failed to run out of the land. And so, but he knew of God's greatness. It's like Rahab. When Rahab, when they come into the land and Rahab's like, hey, I know what your God did. You tell me what I need to do. And so this Jebusite here, this person, he's like, okay, you need this altar to your Lord, to God, you got it. It's yours. Verse 22, now Araunah said to David, let my lord the king take and offer whatever seems good to him. Look, here are oxen for burnt sacrifice, threshing implements, and yokes of the oxen for wood. All these, O king, Araunah has given to the king, and Araunah said to the king, may the Lord your God accept you. Who's making the sacrifice here?
Looks like Araunah is.
Araunah's the only one making sacrifice here.
He's giving up his property and his animals.
Everything. I mean, he's given his oxen. He's given the yoke that they're bound on.
Yeah, to burn.
To burn. To burn them with. He's given everything to them. Then the king said to Araunah, no. Now, you look back up here on verse 18. It says in verse 18, go up and erect an altar to the Lord on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. It didn't say how he was supposed to do that. He just said go do it. That's all he got. An altar, a place to sacrifice. Down here in verse 24, no. But I will surely buy it from you for a price. Nor will I offer burnt offerings to the Lord my God, that which costs me nothing. So David bought the threshing floor, the oxen, for 50 shekels of silver. Silver's always been a redeeming, always been what they used to redeem with. Always been for something. He could have bought it with gold. He could have bought it with any kind of way, but he bought it with silver because silver's always been used for redemption. And David realized that he had sinned. David was so thankful that the Lord relented that he knew that in thankfulness, he could have went through the motions. He could have either way. This oxen, this yoke, all this business, that's getting ready to transpire.
When you're the king, and David certainly had the power, and he's got an army big enough that he could have wiped this dude off the face of the earth, and just took whatever he had and gave it to him. And really, that's what cost Saul the kingship. God told him, you go and utterly destroy this nation. And Saul says, well, I'm going to keep their animals for these sacrifices.
And King Agag.
Yeah.
And the king.
And so I'm going to keep this stuff. And so, I remember when Samuel comes to him and he's like, why didn't you do what God said? He said, I did do what God said. He said, what's this bleating of sheep I hear in my
What's that
ear?
racket down there then?
Yeah. You didn't utterly destroy them.
That's right.
And so Saul was wanting to take that stuff and offer it, but you say it didn't really cost him anything.
That's right. And was he really thankful for what the Lord did?
Right. And so David right here, he could have killed this guy.
He could have killed him. He could have just took it.
Or just said, hey, you're evicted. Go.
Any number of things could have happened.
Yeah.
But in the end, those oxen were still going to be cooked. That wood was still going to be burned. That altar was still going to be built. All these things could have happened. None of it would have been what the Lord wanted unless David got it right here. It's got to cost me something. Because when I'm thankful, when I'm really thankful for what the Lord has done, it's going to show up in the way that I use my blessings. In the way so he took what God told him. I'm so glad you relented. And he made redemption come from it. Not only that, but you mentioned it a while ago in 2 Chronicles 3 and verse 1, it tells us that Solomon began to build the temple on the site where the threshing floor David had bought from the Jebusite from. Israel's redemption will ultimately come at the same place that David bought redemption because he was thankful. And eventually, when our Lord would perish on the cross, and that same temple, that same place would tear from the top down, giving us access to heaven for redemption. That's something to be thankful for.
We sure hope that you're thankful. We hope that you have a great week. This is